everybody, welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. We got a special episode really quickly, Cabin in the Woods.
Indeed.
We want to talk about it and include some spoilers in it, because it's a movie that's worth discussing, but it's a sort of movie that, if I tell you anything about it, I just ruined the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm sitting with...
Nicholas. I write video game reviews for thedreamersedge.com.
And I'm Dimitri, webmaster of thedreamersedge.com, and we're here to review Cabin in the Woods, completely and utterly spoiler-heavy.
Indeed. Well, before we go into spoilers, we should say if you want to watch the movie, and you should, because I think we both recommend this movie, you should just stop this podcast right now, go watch the movie, and then come back and listen to the end of this podcast.
Absolutely. If you want to know whether or not you like the movie without getting into too much spoilers, we have the written review on the site, dreamersedge.com. But from this point out, right now, if you haven't turned off your machine or your browser, changed pages...
Turn off your machine is a little extreme there. Just yank the cord out of the wall. No!
Actually, if it's a laptop, has a battery, it doesn't even work. A little synopsis just for form.
It's 5 teenagers. They go on what they think is just a weekend in a cabin in the woods. What it turns out is they were tricked into going there, and it's actually a ritual sacrifice to keep a god satisfied so that he doesn't destroy the world.
The sacrifice involves, of course, not just the killing of them, but, a ritual killing.
Yeah.
And the ritual essentially involves them going through the cliches and conventions of a horror movie.
Exactly.
All right. How'd you feel about the movie?
Actually, I didn't know what kind of movie it was going in there, so I was very surprised. I didn't know what exactly was going on there with, the scientists there. It's like, are they just trying to make, like, the best movie ever, and that's why they have these guys there? What's happening? And, well, the teenagers were dying. I was like, this is kind of hard to find humor in what's happening. I mean, the other time, I thought it was very weird. Once you start understanding what's happening, it becomes quite enjoyable. And I thought it was something weird happening, because when it goes to the horror movie things, it's a horrible horror movie when you think about it.
Oh, it's really bad.
It is so predictable. It's not only predictable, it lets you time to think about this is going to happen now. Like,
yeah.
We're safe. Pause. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then somebody gets stabbed, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is very, very bad. But the whole joke is that, it's what's happening with the people that are trying to cause a sacrifice, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the basic idea is you got two parallel narratives going on at the same time. You have the kids sort of going through that very cliched and, like, let's face it, a really bad horror movie. It's even the monster they pick is deliberately a really bad idea for a monster.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you got these workers sort of organizing stuff. And when we mean organizing stuff, well, you've seen the movie presumably, but still, we're talking about, like, releasing pheromones to enhance the sexual atmosphere. But it's their sarcastic comments that, like, they're so jaded about it. And that's what works in the movie. Like, their scenes are freaking hilarious. Bradley Whitford is just such a funny actor.
Yeah.
He spends most of the movie bemoaning the absence of a merman, and that had me cracking up every time.
Yeah.
And it's not even the line that's funny, it's just the way he does it, because he seems genuinely sad about not having
I know,
he
really wants this merman, and you have the security guard that's there that's looking at this like, these people are so, ugh.
And of course, they represent to a certain degree the filmmakers, and also at the same time the audience.
Yeah, I think the audience there of a typical horror movie for me. Yeah, that you expect things to happen. It has to be that way, and in that way it was great.
And that's where the Amy Acker character is hilarious as well, because she's there as the typical girl going like, I can't believe you watched this trap and this. But that's the same time she's watching it.
Yeah.
She's just a big hypocrite.
Indeed.
Having said that, I want to talk a little bit about what the ultimate message of the movie is, because it feels like a rather big condemnation of the horror genre.
Yes, it does actually. I saw it that way.
Yeah. It's a weird movie that has so many horror movie references. You'll find, like, shots that are sort of almost lifted from The Strangers. The cabin is, of course, the cabin from Evil Dead. They get near the water, and the dock looks exactly like the dock from Friday the 13th.
Okay.
One of the monsters is clearly a Cenobite from Hellraiser. All these references, and they're obscure references that only, true blue horror fans are going to catch. But at the same time, at the end of the movie, they're essentially saying, Well, if you like horror movies, and then you're a failure as a human being, and might as well die already. That's pretty much what they say at the end.
I don't know. I just saw it more as a if you don't give the viewers what they want, the cliche things of this person has to die and then this, and you need the jock and then you need the smart guy. If you don't have that, then your movie's going to be crap and people are not going to like it. That's more how I saw it.
Okay, I see that definitely. I was more referring to the idea that the two heroes that survive.
Yeah.
They're like, if this is we need to survive, then the hell with humanity. And it felt to me like if you need horror movies in your life, then the hell with you.
I could say as being if you need the horror movies to have those same cliches of those five, you need the hot girl to die and then the jock, and then if you really need that for your movie to be for you to be happy with the movie, then screw you.
That's a very different take.
Okay.
And mind you, my take is maybe a little bit biased by my knowledge of how Joss Whedon, as general who co-wrote the film, feels about horror movies. He's spent his entire public career denouncing them.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when he made Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he insisted that he did it to sort of show up the horror genre that's fundamentally misogynistic, because Joss Whedon is a very strong and vocal feminist.
Okay.
And, I wanted to create this character who's supposed to be the dumb blonde in horror movies who always gets killed, but she's actually strong and smart and has all these ideas, and take that misogynistic horror movies.
Okay.
Except that, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show at least, came in 97. The movie he wrote that didn't really turn out the way he wanted was in 94.
Yeah.
Ever since Halloween, where the slasher was born, which is what he's making fun of, the protagonists have all been, women.
Yeah.
Laurie Strode is a girl. Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street is a girl.
Yeah, but they're also being victimized, though.
But they're strong women.
That's true.
Like Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street in particular. How does Nightmare on Elm Street end? It ends with Nancy kicking Freddy's ass, literally.
Okay.
She actually beats him up.
All right.
So, I always felt that he often denigrates horror without fully understanding it, or at least having an understanding of it that's a little bit like 15, 20 years behind.
Okay.
Another example of this, he called out Roland Hoffey for making the film Captivity, based on its trailer alone. Joss Whedon never actually saw the movie.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah, I hate when people do that. It's like, if you're going to call somebody a failure as a human being, which is what Joss Whedon did. First of all, as a public figure, that's, whatever you think of Roland Hoffey's choice as a filmmaker, not as a person, but as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like, Roland Hoffey's children are going to read that because you're a public figure. And you just called him a failure as a human being.
Yeah.
That's what's typically known as a dick move.
Indeed.
And the trailers for the movie Captivity, which admittedly are bad trailers, is you see this woman being tortured, and she by like torture porn style, like Saw movies.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm sorry," and the killer doesn't care and kills him. And like Joss Whedon's head just popped. And was like, "What is she sorry about? This is like the movie's trying to make women apologize for being women. That's disgusting." Blah blah. And I'm like, well, no. That even from the trailer, you shouldn't get that. You should get that this is a crazy killer monster who wants women to apologize for things she doesn't need to apologize, and he's the bad guy, so you shouldn't agree with him.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And the irony is that if you actually watch Captivity, which I'm not suggesting is a good movie, it's not.
Okay.
But the message of the movie is very clear. He's created a killer that sort of represents modern misogyny and the way it sort of inserted itself even in contemporary relationships. That the idea that sexism still exists today, and women are still being oppressed in casual relationships, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's the basic idea of Captivity. I don't want to say more because if you want to see the movie, it's very easy to spoil as well. So.
Okay.
So he's, accusing this director of being a misogynist because he's talking about misogyny in his movie. And that to me is sort of like reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of the horror film. Whereas just because you talk about a topic in a horror movie doesn't mean you approve of it. Usually it's because you disapprove of it in a horror movie. Having said that, here's Joss Whedon. He's making this horror movie and he's advertised it for the better part of 2 years as a loving hate letter to horror movies.
Okay.
The horror movie that's going to kill all the other piece of trash horror movies, I think is... I'm paraphrasing, but that was pretty much what he said.
Really?
Yeah. So, I came in with, sort of that mindset coming in, going okay, how is he going to denounce horror movies? And for the record, I think he's doing it with a lot of wit and charm, and so I still think his movie's good. But I do think that it is a condemnation of horror fans.
Knowing that, that's kind of lame. I mean, we're horror movie fans that went to see his horror movie, and that's what he's thinking. That's kind of, I just go ahead and say fuck you. You just show up in front of the camera when the movie's over and just say fuck you.
That's the feeling I got, and it's a weird thing because the more you get the jokes in the movie, the more of a horror fan you are, the larger the middle finger Whedon is giving you is,
You're a huge horror fan, so I have to ask this now. Any horror movie have a unicorn in it, in them impaling people?
No.
Okay.
No, I've never found one. I thought that bit was hilarious.
Yeah, indeed.
Because, in that room you see monsters that are from real movies. Like, the kids with the baby mask are from The Strangers.
Yeah.
The guy with the blades on his head and the little spheres from Hellraiser. You got Anaconda.
Yeah.
Arachnophobia as well. Like, it. All from real movies, but no, the unicorn I can't really spot. Unless he's making fun of the white horse in Halloween 2, but Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Okay.
Because there's a white horse figure that keeps appearing over and over again in that movie, and all the fans of Halloween who generally dislike Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 actually like it a lot. Yeah. But they're all like, what's with the horse? And every time I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
So I guess we need to ask what's with the unicorn.
But you mentioned that it's a bad horror movie that the 5 kids are living through. And I'm wondering if a lot of it is because Joss Whedon doesn't watch horror movies because he hates this shit so much.
Okay.
And Drew Goddard seems to come from the same background, so they're sort of imitating a horror movie without having really understood them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's all like the cliches of trying to use a jump scare, but letting so much time for the audience of realizing the jump scare is going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's not just bad horror movie thing. I guess it's bad filmmaking, really. If you're trying to scare people, have the jump scare happen when you're not expecting it.
Yeah. There's one character who gets a blade into his throat while he's driving, and it really is a case of like, he's dead now.
Yeah.
As soon as he says his line, that pretty much says you're dead.
Exactly. Even at the weak jump scare when they meet the gas attendants guy at the beginning, and the guy's he's there and he's walking backwards, and it's like, okay, well, it's gonna happen now, but no, not even there. He has time to like turn around and look around again, and then afterwards the jump scare. You're like, come on,
Yeah, I think it's bad suspense filmmaking because they're not creators who care about that stuff.
I guess so.
Or care for that stuff, I should say.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, Frank Kranz's pothead character is freaking hilarious.
Indeed.
And he has some of the best lines. I think my favorite still remains where he goes like, I'm drawing a line in the sand here. Do not read the Latin.
Although, another thing too, they try and make it so that they changed the teenagers, that they didn't used to be that way, but they kind of changed them to make them fit the mold. And it would have been nice to have seen them act before, to see like, oh yeah, they changed. They really did, and not just go on the tongues of the drunken pothead that says, yeah, she changed and he's changing too. And it's like, really? It's like, did they really?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we get a hint of it at the beginning where, they're not that bad.
Yeah.
They do get progressively worse as the movie progresses. But.
I guess, but the guy shows up at the beginning with a football. I mean, it's like, okay, so he's not the sports guy. The first thing he does is like heads up and he throws a football.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how did he change exactly? And I would have done the same thing as the 2 guys at the end there.
Not kill each other and let the world crumble?
Yeah, totally. I'm that vindictive. Like, you want me to die for the whole world? It's like, you didn't even ask me first, you're just killing me? It's like, screw you. Screw the world.
I wouldn't have killed the other person or myself either, but from a different mindset. It's, all I have to go on is these crazy people's word on it, so I'll take my chances.
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
All right, the big question though that often comes up because a lot of people are loving the crap out of this movie,
Yeah.
and one of the comments that keeps coming back is like, you thought Scream really was an effective satire of a horror movie. Like, no, this blows Scream out of the water. And I actually am of the opposite mind because I don't agree with the thesis. Like, I don't agree that horror fans are depraved human beings because I think the thesis is wrong.
Yeah.
When you see the two white-collar controllers there, the puppeteers as we call them,
Yeah.
they're always rooting for the monster.
Yeah.
And if they're meant to represent us as an audience, well, that's wrong. A horror fan roots for the survivors. That's why Halloween H2O is the highest grossing Halloween sequel of all time. And what does it do? It features the return of, not Michael Myers, Laurie Strode. The Scream movies, they keep changing the killer, but it's always Sidney, Dewey, and Courtney Cox as Gale, Because we love those heroes.
That's true.
So I think they get it wrong, and that's where their entire thesis goes wrong, because they go like, if you want to punish the young and all of that. And it was like, no, I want the young to survive. I want the young to survive Impossible Oz. That's why I watch this stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think they're wrong, and therefore, for me, it's a less effective satire, because for me, the entire satire is built on a profound misunderstanding of the genre.
Indeed, and he managed to make us feel completely the opposite, though, because at one point when they let all the monsters loose and they all kill everybody in the lab, you're rooting for the monsters at this point, and you're like, you're not supposed to be doing that in a horror movie. It's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to feel bad for them, and it's like you're like, come on, kill those bastards. And it's like, no, that's not exactly how it's supposed to work.
It's true. I didn't look at that, but it's true. So yeah, for me, less effective than Scream. I think Scream is a more thoughtful reflection of what the horror genre is.
Yeah.
And mostly helped by the fact that it's actually directed by somebody who was a master of horror back in the day.
Okay.
How do you feel about it? Like, do you think it's more effective than Scream as a satire or less?
No. I see the satire in Scream. I don't see the satire in this. This I see just a funny, interesting new idea happening. I really don't see the satire. Now that you explained it to me, I understand the big giant finger to the to the horror fans. But I don't see the satire at all in it, really. So I don't get where people are coming from when they say that. No?
Well, you have the top side story with the 5 kids happening with all these cliches happening, and every time you've got the 2 guys in the control room pointing out the cliches.
Yeah.
Sort of the same way that the kids in Scream point out the cliches.
Yeah, but it's happening to the kids in Scream, so they're not making it happen. It's like, oh look, I'm going to make this cliche happen. Clack, clack, clack. That's not satire. That's just you're pointing out how you're making your bad movie. I don't see that as satire.
Oh, that's an interesting thought, and that's an interesting distinction. It's true. The big difference with Scream is that the characters living it are the ones pointing it out, which makes it even more absurd.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite bits in the first Scream where Sidney goes like, oh, I hate slasher movies. It's always full of bimbos who run upstairs instead of going out the door when a killer attacks them. It's like exactly a minute later, the same thing happens to her and she runs upstairs.
Yeah. Like that scene you like in Scream. If she had been saying that line while running upstairs from the killer, that would have just lost all meaning to,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in a horror movie, I should run upstairs even though I shouldn't. It's like, no, that doesn't work. It wouldn't have been as funny at all. And it would have been kind of, you would have been looking at that like kind of stupid. So it's basically what's happening there, We'll add pheromones because they need to have sex. You're like, well, you're making it happen.
You have these characters and they're being pushed and prodded and sent pheromones and stupid gas.
Yeah.
So that they behave like the archetypes. And I think there's a comment there about how, horror movies don't have the strongest character. Well, I should say slasher movies don't have the strongest characters because they're sort of forced into the demands of the plot.
Okay.
And there are some pretty heavy-handed moments, such as when Sigourney Weaver comes up and she calls herself the director. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there is this oddity of, like, the virgin must survive and they must kill the pothead in the first and all that, and then all hell breaks loose, and Emily, and a good 20, 30, 40 people get killed in the process.
Yeah.
And I'm like, surely one of them must have smoked pot at one point.
Yeah, and it's not even the pothead, it's like the fool.
Fool.
So not one of them, cracks a joke once in a while. They were all betting on, how they were going to die, and all having a jolly, come on. They're a bunch of fools, seriously. So, I don't know. It just seemed weak, but okay, fine. You need that specific fool, you know. And I was thinking maybe they haven't been killed in a ritual way, but they were fine with just shooting the guy, you know. So, I don't know.
Or shooting the guy, or the guy being hitting the electronic wall when he jumps with his motorcycle.
Yeah. So the ritual is having them go to the cabin.
Yeah.
So any one of them could have been, you know.
Yeah.
They all went to the cabin. They just went under it instead of to the cabin.
Yeah.
They're part of the ritual.
That part doesn't entirely make sense to me.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like they might have been hesitant about how to end the movie. Like where nothing happens because the ritual is completed despite themselves.
Yeah.
Like they survive but the other people get killed or whatever. Or the thing where the big hand comes out at the end and they didn't know which one to go with. So they might have, like, I wouldn't be surprised if in the DVD you get the alternate ending where both things happen.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lines like, you know, hundreds of people are dying here, and one of them must be stupid. I mean, the intern was a big joke the whole time.
Yeah.
He was the fool, come on.
Yeah. But he's also the virgin, I'm sure. But I keep sort of criticizing the satire, but let's face it, it's a funny movie. I recommend it just based on that.
Yeah.
It's well crafted, it's engaging, it's really funny. You know?
Yes.
And I mean, like, even though I don't agree with its thesis, I'm not so small-minded that I can't appreciate a movie just because it makes a statement that I don't agree with.
Yeah, exactly. You don't agree with the statement, but it's a funny, good movie, so it's fine. He's allowed to state his opinion, you're allowed to disagree with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very funny, and like some bits are so goddamn funny. The bit, like, as you brought up the going to the cabin, and it reminded me of the man they meet on their way to the cabin.
Yeah.
And like the bit with the speakerphone is so funny.
Indeed.
And the bit with where they made fun of Japanese horror movies.
Yes. Oh, that was hilarious. They beat the monster. It turns into, you're going to be a happy frog now. Oh.
That made me laugh so much, but after the fact, I was trying to figure out what they were referencing. Like, is there any Japanese movies or that have that tendency to end in such an absurd way?
I don't know. The ghost is like cliche classic, but I don't know. Maybe because to us their beliefs are kind of ridiculous, so he tried to extend the ridiculous to like even more to like, now the ghost is a gentle frog, that's completely stupid. Not saying that their beliefs are ridiculous. I mean, to them, our beliefs in ghosts are probably completely stupid too.
Yeah, I'm sure they do think it was like, why are you afraid of somebody in a white sheet? You know?
Zombies, gee, just walk away. Come on.
But anyway, I guess we ran out of stuff to say about Cabin in the Woods.
Could be a short review. That's fine.
Well, yeah, that's it for us. I hope you enjoyed this little discussion. And if you want to share with us what you thought about Cabin in the Woods, you can mail us at mail@thedreamersedge.com or write to us at thedreamersedge.com. Just leave your comments and we answer our email so we can spark up a discussion.
Indeed.
Talk to you later.
And I thought it was something weird happening because when it goes to the horror movie things, it's a horrible horror movie when you think about it.
Oh, it's really bad.
It is so predictable. It's not only predictable, it lets you time to think about this is going to happen now. Like, we're safe. Pause. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then somebody gets stabbed, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is very, very bad. But the whole joke is that, it's what's happening with the people that are trying to cause a sacrifice, and that was...
And we're here to review Cabin in the Woods completely and utterly spoiler-heavy.
Indeed. Well, before we go into spoilers, we should say if you want to watch the movie, and you should, because I think we both recommend this movie, you should just stop this podcast right now, go watch the movie, and then come back and listen to the end of this podcast.
Absolutely. If you want to know whether or not you like the movie without getting into too much spoilers, we have the written review on the site, dreamersedge.com. But from this point out, right now, if you haven't turned off your machine or your browser, changed pages...
Turn off your machine is a little extreme.
Going through the cliches and conventions of a horror movie.
Exactly.
Alright. How'd you feel about the movie?
Actually, I didn't know what kind of movie it was going in there, so I was very surprised. I didn't know what exactly was going on there with, the scientists there. It's like, are they just trying to make, like, the best movie ever, and that's why they have these guys there, is what's happening. And, well, teenagers were dying, I was like, this is kind of hard to find humor in what's happening. I mean, the other time I thought it was very weird. Once you start understanding what's happening, it becomes quite enjoyable. There. Just yank the cord out of the wall. No!
Actually, if it's a laptop has a battery, it doesn't even work. A little synopsis just for form.
It's 5 teenagers. They go on what they think is just a weekend in a cabin in the woods. What it turns out is they were tricked into going there, and it's actually a ritual sacrifice to keep a god satisfied so that he doesn't destroy the world.
The sacrifice involves, of course, not just the killing of them, but, a ritual killing.
Yeah.
And the ritual essentially involves them going... Hey everybody, welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. We got a special episode really quickly, Cabin in the Woods.
Indeed.
We want to talk about it and include some spoilers in it, because it's a movie that's worth discussing, but it's a sort of movie that if I tell you anything about it, I just ruined the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm sitting with...
Nicholas. I write video game reviews for thedreamersedge.com.
And I'm Dimitri, webmaster of thedreamersedge.com.